Well, hello, hello, hello. I am Anala D, your host. And today we have with us Mr. Mark Thomas, our moderator and contributor, along with our other contributors, Pastor Archie Sanders, Dr. Griffo, Lavelle Raza, and Tamisha Burgess. Now, for you to learn more about our contributors, you can go to our YouTube page and you will learn all about the wonderful work that each one of them do. So, good morning to each and every one of you.
Good morning.
Good morning. All righty then. We also have some guests on this morning. We have Miss Cassandra, and I think we have Miss Carice Moses on. And I want to tell you, Miss Moses has really been contributing to this show. She is very interested in us continuing our work, and we appreciate you for your contributions. This morning, we have a great show lined up for you today. One of the things that we will do today is allow you to talk to us about some of the verses in and chapters or verses in the book of Revelation that has confused you. Because one of the things that we realize is that the book of Revelation is not continuing to give you something new, it's just reminding you of what we've been talking about from the beginning. So again, I'm just glad to have each and every one of you here today, acknowledging our guests. And also, I want you to remember that you are and can ask questions if you want to. That is one of the ways that you can participate with us. So with that, let's just jump right in. We've been unpacking the book of Revelation for a while now. And the bottom line is this: the book of Revelation is not about the world coming to an end. We've discovered that. Dr. Griffo has really broke that down and let us know that it's not about the world coming to the end. This book is not about fire and brimstone being thrown down upon the earth, and it's not about a savior coming from the sky one day who is going to save you. What the book of Revelation reveals, it reveals our conscious growth or the lack of it. This book teaches us about our bodies and how we hold the power of healing within ourselves. It teaches us how each of us, being human beings, are clothed in these suits of flesh, how our bodies correlate with the solar system. And regardless of what it looks like in this worldly dimension, our births were not a mistake. I know sometimes we feel that, we have going through this life, it just seems like maybe we shouldn't be here, and it's, everything isn't happening the way we think it should happen, and we start to think it's a mistake. But we've learned through Lavelle Rouser that this is not a mistake, that we were meant to be here, that our birth charts and everything tell us who we are and why we are here. And if we just think about this, if our mothers and our fathers had known this information and could have trained us up from children on what we're supposed to do and how we can do it and how we can be our best, wow, wouldn't that be great? But that's okay, because we can still learn right now and start to do today what we were sent here to do. We know that the symbolisms in the book of Revelation may change. Dr. Griffo talks about, it may be a ram here, maybe a cow here, but the bottom line is the message is the same, although the symbolisms may change. So what we're not going to do, we're not just going to go through each part of the chapters. What our contributors are going to do today is they're going to ask if you have some specific things you want to know about Revelation, we will respond to that. And mostly Dr. Griff will respond to a lot of that because he is one of the people that is so well versed in the book of Revelation. Everybody is on this panel, but Dr. Griffo is really one of our leading contributors in that area. In addition to that, we're going to break down some scriptures in the book of Revelation that we believe may be something new for you. so that we can move through it. Because as Dr. Griffo said before, that basically the information is repeating itself so that you can get it. So we realize that every one of us should be flowing up and down the chakra scale. We should not be in one area and just kind of sitting in that area. So what we want to do today is kind of talk about, you know, what each of those chakra areas are, because we've talked about that before, but what you might look like, what might a characteristic of a person look like who is dwelling in a particular chakra area or consciousness. And we're going to start with the root chakra, because that is the first chakra on the chart. So if a person is feeling disconnected, disorganized, lack of focus, they're having a lot of fear and anxiousness or restlessness, most likely you have grounded yourself in the root chakra. Now we know that we're supposed to move up and down, because number one, you need to know when to feel fear and run and hide or whatever, but that is not an area that you should dwell in for long periods of time. And if you are feeling that that's what you're doing, then perhaps you are rooted or grounded in that root chakra. If you don't have any endurance, like you're just tired all the time, think about that. That might be another area, another reason you might want to check yourself out. You might want to meditate so that you can move out of that area. You don't want to dwell in the root chakra all the time. You're supposed to flow up and down in all of them. You know, and even in the crown, the highest consciousness that there is, you shouldn't just be dwelling there either, because you know sometimes people just dwell there. They think that they don't use their instincts to even run when something is going to pursue them, or they think, oh well, I can just pick up this snake and it's not going to bite me, it's not going to harm me because of who I am. So you can't dwell there so much either that you lose your common sense. So all those things we want to talk about today, break a little bit of that down so we can realize where we are, and then of course start to move up and down our consciousness or chakra levels as we need to. How about that? Can we agree to do that today? I'm excited about this. I'm excited about this show today. And so I want to, before I move on, I know that Mark Thomas had something he wanted to say as it relates to the root chakra. So let's let him open up with that. And then we're just gonna, everybody just jump in and talk about the scripture or verse that you want to talk about. And when you do, if you could relate it to whatever chakra a person might be in for the scripture that you're bringing to the surface, or just make a great a general comment. And we guess there's on the live broadcast today, please feel free to open asking the questions that you want to ask, because we are most likely going to conclude the book of Revelation by June the 6th. And with that being said, let's invite Mark Thomas to the table and say what he has to say about the chakras or consciousness and whatever.
All right, thank you, Paula. Actually, I'm going to begin before the chakra. I'm going to begin at the beginning of what I consider to be Revelation, which to me is chapter 4, the very beginning of chapter 4. To me, it expresses and encompasses a real fundamental idea of what SRC is talking about. In the first verse of this chapter, it reads, After this I looked, and behold, a door was opened in heaven, and the first voice which I heard was as it were of a trumpet talking with me, which said, Come up hither, and I will show thee things which must be hereafter. This, to me, is really the beginning of the revelation of John or Apollonius, as we've discussed. But we're not going to think of this as John or Apollonius, but rather as ourselves. We are the ones who will listen for the trumpet and come up hither. This sets the stage for the great story that is to follow in the book of Revelation, with all its symbolism and allegory, and which SRC has laid out in the last 17 episodes. Come up hither, and so begin the journey in the same place that it culminates. When I think of this passage, I envision someone who chooses to be on a journey of discovery. The ancients, as described in the Bible, were often on such a journey, whether it be a spiritual journey or an actual physically traveling. Often they would seek the higher ground. Why, you might ask? So that they might see further and so understand what lays before them. So come up hither and I will show thee things. Is it any wonder that the ancient storytellers gave the angels wings? My final point is a simple one. The first step to finding yourself and the God that you are is to know that it is there in the first place. And by so doing, the journey will then begin. And I'll back to you.
Thank you so very much, Mark Thomas, for that information. So the first step is to know thyself, is what you're saying.
Very much so, yes.
Okay, great. Okay, let's just open it up now. I'm sure that each one of you as a contributor has something that you want to add today. So let me just hear you come on out with it. I don't want to call on people. I want you to just tap in.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Yeah, that's awesome. Knowing ourselves. I always talk to people in a lot of sermons. I have told people about Jahhi Vahi, which was Jehovah, but it's a beginning. It's a beginning for you. And I found out that we control our own destiny. And what we're looking at in Revelation, and I'm glad Anala explained that where we're starting to repeat things over and over. We're trying to it's trying to show us, as Mark said, that is how to accomplish the higher way of living, the higher way of thinking. One of the biggest things that I'm finding out trying to get this here is self-denial. You when you gotta deny in order to even get a good study in college or high school or whatever, you have to deny yourself of things that get in your way. And over and over it's telling us, as Anal said, we're going up and down the chakras, the desire, the lust of the flesh is one of the things that causes us to stay in this desire stage where we're just constantly desiring things. We never get to the point of where the less things we want, the higher we become and the closer we come to being a God, because now gods don't want anything. they don't want anything. So we have to deal with this thing called lust. And I've been testing some people and trying some stuff so I can get my training going. And I'm talking directly to them. And where we always start at, y'all, and I think Tamisha works with a lot of women that think that you're trying to get with them. That's the first thing that we did, and that's desire. That's desire and lust for men. The first thing they see, oh, that's a fine woman there. Look at there, boy, because we're in that stage, and that level, where the animalistic way of thinking is there, and we have to get rid of that. We got it. In order to do that, we got to get to the point where we can just deny the things that Revelation has been showing us, how we act in each one of these chakras, and we got to conquer lust first. If we don't conquer lust, we'll always stay there in that animalistic way.
Very good. And when you're talking about lust, and I don't see lust as just a female wanting a male or vice versa. Lust could be, and the chakras teach us that lust could be just greediness.
That's
lust
right.
could be that we just have such a hunger, as you mentioned, Pastor Archie. Lust could be that we just have such a hunger for materialistic things that we can't even tap into the spiritual things of life. And so I understand that, totally support that. I know, Dr. Griffo, you look like you have something to say about that one, or do you want to, is there another verse that you'd like us to tap into?
The verse that I've been looking at is, of course, in Revelations 21.
21?
Yeah, chapter 21. And, that's where it's talking about this new city coming down and how God will be with them and, wipe away all their tears. And as Pastor Archie just said, God won't want for nothing. So as you read later in this verse or in this chapter, it talks about you will have no need for sun. You will have no need for anything, because you are with God. So where I'm at in that is how, as we've said, and as you said in your monologue, this book is talking about the human body. It's talking about the star systems, and it keeps repeating itself over and over again as we read Revelations. And and I was just sitting here thinking about the vertebrae or the spinal column, which is broken down into 7 cervical, then 12 thoracic, then 5 lumbar, 5 sacral, and 4 coccyx. And I started to look at the Bible and I started to see, well, this is another one of the areas of where the Bible gets these specific numbers from. The 7, the 12, the 5, and the 4. We recognize readily the number 7, and we recognize the number 12 is always being talked about in the Bible, but we rarely talk about the number 5, where Jesus had 5 wombs. David picked up 5 stones. When he talks about Lucifer trying to be like God, he did 5 different things, so and then of course we know about the 4 gates and things like that. So everywhere I read, I'm finding more and more confirmation that you're dealing with the human body and the overlay of these stories as it utilizes the transmission of the revelations from the cranial down to the sacral and back up. So what you guys said is just going right in line with what I was already thinking as far as the comments you made. So so as I read Revelations 21, it's just really just confirming more and more what we've been saying over the course of the past couple of months. So that's all.
Right. Let me. Oh, go ahead, Pastor Archie.
Sorry. Yeah, I just wanted, since you were in 21, Doc, I wanted to. I thought you were going to 21 and 7, and which that I was just speaking of. Can I just read that right quick?
Absolutely.
He that overcometh shall inherit all things, and I will be his God, and he shall be my son. But the fearful and unbelieving and the abominable and murderers and whoremongers and sorcerers and idolaters and all liars shall have their part in the lake which burneth with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. Now, here we go. Here we go again. That's what I was saying. Man. Revelation 21 lays it out there, lets us know right there that if we overcome, then but it says we have to overcome and inherit all things. And it's not talking about just things, cars and houses, and I think that's why I mentioned that, Doc. We're not talking about houses and cars and land and all that there, but we're made to believe. It's presented to us. I have presented it to people too, until I began to study a little deeper. We present it as though, okay, you're going to be great. You're going to have things. You're going to have this. You'll inherit all things. Wait a minute, baby. It ain't really talking. It's talking about what the whole book of Revelation has laid out for us to get us to understand that in order to get to this higher consciousness, we got to overcome that Lord's self, that animalistic way. We cannot move up except we get that in control. I done tested it at my age, 63. I just turned 63. And my wife. I'm trying to get this program. I'm trying to get people to understand. I talk directly to them and specifically women, and see where they understand that us as men are coming from. Most times I think we're coming from a sexual way, and it's not that. We got to overcome in order for us to become a higher thinker, we got to stop thinking about all I want is this woman that I see. I just wanted to put it that, you know what I'm saying? Maybe
Yeah,
y'all can help me out.
absolutely. We totally get that. I want to just go back and touch a little on something and maybe get some of the other panelists to chime in on this. It does, we're not saying that you can't have those material things, because when it says inherit all things, that means that is whatever you desire. And also I want to touch back on verse 8, still in Revelation 21, because but the fearful and all this stuff that's talking about here, I want to, we have believed that that the church, the religion has taught us that it's all these people that's going to be burned in the lake of fire. Now we know that that is not what this verse was talking about. And when we talk about overcome, we're talking about managing, because as we talk about, we still want to desire each other so that we can populate the earth and all those things. So Dr. Biffo, on verse 8 here, what is it really talking about? Because it's not talking about you're going to be in some lake of fire and burn forever and ever and ever because you didn't do all these things. So what is it saying?
Easy. Just you're dwelling in the lower nature, where you're talking about the lake of fire. When you're talking about fearful, as we've said, or as you've said, when people read this book, they become scared and they don't want to touch it because of what they felt was doom and gloom and this war that's going to wipe out the majority of the planet, and this craziness has got the Israelis and the Palestinians going at each other right now, thinking that they're fighting over some land that God promised them. That they're taking a literal interpretation of a book that was not designed to be taken literal. So now you got millions of people being shot at and scared and things like that, when it's talking about is your individual body. So the fearful, the whoremongers, are those who are still lusting after things and not trying to climb from that lake of fire, that bottomless pit, and come up toward the bride, who is, as this book talks about, is going to be descending from heaven and is going to be descending down. So we have to, I hate that we're going to stop in a couple of weeks, talking about the book of Revelation. However, people really need to understand that this book is very, very, as all of the books of the Bible are very symbolic, and we cannot take them literally. And as long as people can take them literally, then we're still going to have people thinking that King Solomon's temple is a building, is an actual building, when the Bible specifically states it was made without sound, without hammers, without noise. Where the only way you can make a temple without sound is meditating. Meditating is what? Of course, taking no thought. And so when you go to the book of Matthew and the book of Mark, it talks about when Jesus says, take no thought for this, take no thought for that. And he says that 5 times, going back to one of those parts of your spinal column that exists, you know what I mean? Specifically the sacral area. So we have to understand that you're dealing with a metaphysical, symbolic book, and you cannot take these things literal, and therefore that there should be some war in the Middle East over some land that nobody actually owns. And if anything, if we go back and look at it, God displaced the Canaanites to give it to the Jews. So the Jews are saying, well, it was our ancient homeland. Well, before it was their homeland, it was the Canaanites' homeland. So, but that's something that they don't want to talk about, because their narrative of the Bible has been accepted as the rightful way. And they've taught these evangelical Christians and these Zionists that this is God's will. No, this is not God's will. This is man's will. So we have to continue to burn the point into people's psyche that this is a symbolic, metaphysical book that's dealing with your body, and not some desert, barren land over there that doesn't grow any crops or anything like that. But I'm gonna step off and let y'all have that.
You're right about that.
I can get passionate. I can get passionate about this subject, but you know,
I can too. I can too. I understand, Dr. Griffo, because we think about, and I want to talk directly to our audience for a second. I see, Miss Williams, that you have your mute off, so you must want to ask a question or say something. We're gonna give that to you in just a second. Book of Revelation, we were all taught about going to hell and all the stuff that's going to happen to us, but SRC is definitely, we're working toward opening your mind up about this whole thing. It's not about anything but about our bodies and how our bodies connect with the solar system. And I know, I get messages, some people say, oh, well, you guys are leading people to hell. No, we're not leading anybody to hell. We're leading you to the truth. You can choose this truth, or you can choose whatever truth you want, but we are laying the information out there, the knowledge out there. So then you can go, as Pastor Archie said all the time, go study for yourself. Go look it up for yourself. You're going to find it to be the truth. Look at and get some of Dr. Griffo's books. You're going to see that he has laid all the things we're talking about is laid out in his book in accordance also with the Bible. Okay, Ms. Williams, what question do you have for us? Okay, I see that you went off mute. You took your mute off, so I thought you wanted to ask something. All right, so with that, let's just see. Ms. Burgess, okay, what do we have?
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
You know what? I am still on Revelation chapter 12 from last week, week before last.
Okay.
When we talked about the dragons. We were kind of all on that subject about the dragon and the woman giving birth to a son. You guys remember that?
Yes.
And what we didn't get to was verse 13 and 14, which really stuck out for me. So hopefully we can jump ship a little bit here.
Okay, not a problem. Let's just read that verse and the commission, and you can.
So it's chapter 12, verse 13 and 14. Okay. So now when the dragon saw that he had been cast to the earth, he persecuted the woman who gave birth to the male child. But the woman was given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness to her place, where she is nourished for a time, and times and half, a time from the presence of the serpent. I'm going to keep going to 16. So the serpent spewed water out of his mouth like a flood after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away by the flood. But the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened its mouth and swallowed up the flood which the dragon had spewed out of his mouth. This speaks volumes to me, and it probably does for so many of us. Of course, you know, my work is tailored and targeted for women and girls. And so this speaks to me personally, because week before last, we talked about how giving birth, this idea of her giving birth in the Bible to a male son, a lot of us as women give birth to not just children, but ideas. We give birth to our dreams. We give birth to our ideas, right? Whatever that may be for you. And how it seems that when you're in the process of carrying these ideas and right until you're about to give birth to your ideas into the world, there seems to be people, places, circumstances, or things that try to take these dreams from you, try to smite your ideas from you. And we didn't get to this part, but I think it's so powerful to note that sometimes, a little while ago, you said, we're not leading you into hell, but sometimes being led into and through hell is absolutely necessary if you're ever going to get to this idea of heaven. Remember, we talk about the yin and the yang all the time. You cannot have the sun without the moon. You cannot have day without night. You cannot have heaven without hell. So it's absolutely necessary. So what stuck out to me with this story of the woman is sometimes going into the fire saves your life. Sometimes going into the darkness saves your life and saves the life of your dreams and of your ideas. Sometimes the darkness is where you learn to find your strength. Sometimes in hell is where you is where you discover everything about yourself that was once hidden. is where you find your warrior in the darkness. And then this idea of hell is where you learn to hone in on your skills to slay dragons, so to speak. So let's not fear the idea of hell or going into the darkness, because sometimes it's absolutely necessary to save whatever it is you were born to bring and birth into this world.
Absolutely right about that. And let me tell you something. Let me share a little bit of my personal story. Being a person who was incarcerated in the Georgia penal system in prison, I found my strength there. You're right. That was a dark place for me. I didn't enjoy being there, but let me tell you something. I found me in that dark place called prison. I found out what I'm capable of doing, my strength. As a result, I would not have probably written 2 books and now working on my 3rd if I had not been there. If I had not gone through that, I most likely would have just kept putting it off, but I rose to my highest consciousness in the dark.
Definitely.
I would say that.
Definitely.
So yeah, absolutely right, and I can relate to that.
Yeah, so a lot of us fear or have been taught to fear this idea of hell. And I know we talked about this before, a little while when you said we're not leading you into hell. Well, that's exactly where a lot of us should actually go. Right?
Absolutely. But
when
the
someone
thing about
says,
it, we don't want to lead people. We want people to choose to go where they know they need to go. We want them to choose. We're not trying to lead people anywhere. We want you to have the information and then decide what you want to do with it. So that's why I use the word lead.
Right. So, everyone has their own individual journey of evolution, whatever that may look like, whatever you may choose next for yourself. And so what I want to share with those of you who are listening to this now, who are on a particular journey, who know that you have been called to birth and bring something or some things into this world, and you appear to be in a dark place, but you've been called, just know that when you've chosen to answer the call, that going into the darkness and going into this hell, into this fire is absolutely necessary. Remember, fire can do 2 things. It can consume and it can refine. So allow wherever you are in this darkness, as you are giving birth to what you were called to give birth to, that the fires are going to burn away everything that you are not, so that it can refine everything that you are.
Love that, Tamisha. And I see that Lavelle Rouser has his mute off, so I'm sure that he wants to add or contribute something to this conversation.
Okay, well, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I just like to add that in dealing with the book of Revelations, I challenge everyone from a numerological perspective to take this into consideration. The book of Revelation has 22 chapters. And the number 22 has to do with mastery. It is my feeling and my contention that these 22 chapters in Revelations are explaining to us how best to master this world on this planet on which all of us live. And in doing so, you become the master. It's that old saying, man, when the student is ready, the teacher or the master will appear. Well, it's conceivable that you can be both. As a student, you are here to learn. As a teacher, you are here to teach. And so in doing so, I find that it's important to understand that, because in one of my revelations pertaining to this world that we live in, the vibration for this planet is in fact the number 22 itself. So we are all here in this great spiritual learning center called Earth, to learn how to find the truth within ourselves and within others and through others, so that we may learn and go off to other worlds to teach other people after we leave this one. I think spiritually speaking, we must understand that we are not just relegated to this earth alone. And so that's my take on this. Because and the reason why I say all this, because I find the numbers to be very, very revealing. And all the ancient philosophers of old, religious or otherwise, always studied the value and the power in the numbers. And there is a book in the Bible called the Book of Numbers. Maybe we'll get on that one day soon.
Like that.
Okay.
In fact, we will do that. We will get in the Book of Numbers. I think that's a great book to go into after the Book of Revelation. You know, you know, this when we talk about where people are and all that. Even with Dr. Griffo, we talk about what's going on with Israel and the Palestinians and all that. It's, you know, people, when you are stuck in the root chakra, and we're not, you know, you are depending on other securities. You are dependent. When you're stuck there, when you're just dwelling in that place, you're not looking at the fact that your ideals can blossom. You're depending on someone else to tell you what to do and how to do it, you know, and you know, maybe I get this job and nothing wrong with working for someone, but you should always have a plan about your ideals and the things that you want to see blossom in your life. You should not be dependent on someone else to give you those things. And I believe that that's what this world, if we don't allow ourselves to move from root up to the highest chakras and back and forth, we find ourselves where we become dependent on other people in this world to tell us where to go, what to do, and how to do it. And now you start to feel irritated because you don't feel like you have done all the things you're supposed to do. And I know, you know, for me, I was feeling before I even started to get in and move into this area of wisdom, I was feeling like it had to be more. It had to be something else that I was missing. I felt like I was supposed to do more. And so when you start to find yourself and start to understand who you are and the power that you have, like Tamisha was talking about, when you discover that the darkness is not there to hurt you and hinder you, but the darkness is there to refine you and to allow you to come out and propel and have that prana, that energy to do the things that you want to do, then you find out who you really are. So I'm open back up.
I'd like to add to that. The darkness can hurt you though, right? It can, you know, when we fight against whatever it is we were supposed to come here to do, whatever reason we were born, when you struggle against that, there is suffering, right? Earlier, Pastor Uncle Archie was talking about, you know, being in this, I forget what you said exactly, word for word, but being in this hellish lower realm, if you're not answering your soul's calling or doing the work to uncover whatever that is, there is suffering, right? That is what hell is. It's hell. What I've discovered is your own ideas of it, right? So for me, my hell was experiencing extreme levels of anxiety and depression, so much so that I teach how to turn it into your power now, right? It's like, you know, pain being designed to, I put out this cast some time ago called Pain is Designed to Wake You Up Inside. So are you up yet, right? So when you're in these lower hellish realms, the hell will be whatever it is that is painful for you until you learn to alchemize them. So it definitely can be very, very painful, but the work is learning how to turn it into your power. The work is uncovering and unleashing whatever it is that you've been hiding there and coming out to the forefront. So in order to alchemize that, is by answering the calling and not resisting what you've come here to do.
Right. Miss Moses, I know that you're on the line with us today. I hope you have your listening on. If you could take your mute off. I want to ask you something. I want to ask you, tell us about some pains that you've had that you've turned them into power now, if you're there. Carice Moses. Or I ask that same question to Cassandra. Okay, I guess you guys are afraid to. Okay, there she is. Okay, go ahead, Miss Moses. Tell us how you've learned now that through some of the pains that you've had, you've been able to turn those pains into power.
Absolutely. Excuse me, my voice is not clear, but you have helped me in so many ways that you don't even know, and I thank you so much.
Great. So okay, go ahead.
You know, listening to you and understanding more, and I'm in my 60s and thought I knew things that I didn't even know, that I've learned, and I'm grateful. And I'm shy. I don't do too much talking, ask questions, but I'm learning, and I love your show, and I thank you.
Thank you for being here. And this is the broadcast that we're all the panelists here, all the contributors here. They're here because they want people to get the knowledge that they have. They want them to get it. I remember talking to Lavelle some time ago when I first met him, and he was adamant about he want people to get this knowledge. And I didn't understand then, Lavelle, like I understand now, how much you have a passion within yourself to get this information out, so somebody else can learn that they can be in control of their lives. I want to go back to Dr. Griffo for a second, because I want to ask him, what does this new world look like for us, Dr. Griffo? What does it look like now that we've reached the crown, but what does it look like for a person that's still living in the earth? We know we are there mentally too, but what does it look like now when we reach that?
Well, it's twofold. When it says that there's a new heaven, you're looking up at the skies, and no longer will you see Pisces as, the age that we're in. You'll see now a new star constellation with Aquarius. So that is part of that answer as far as a new heaven and a new earth. The other aspect of it is physiological or spiritual, where you will no longer fear, you will no longer have doubts, you will no longer have insecurities, because you have communed with God, you have supped with God, and God speaks to you on a regular basis via spiritual inspirations and things like that, because you have now left that lower nature thinking, and you're now thinking on a higher level. You're at peace. Your peace is not bothered anymore, by mundane things, because you've learned now, because you've went inside and you've mastered, or you're beginning to master yourself, things that used to affect you no longer affect you. And so you're at peace, you're happy, you get along with things, and you know what I mean, and you make peace with things that are not settling to your spirit. Where we would usually fight against those things, we understand them from a higher level, a higher spiritual aspect of ourselves. So, and again, it's twofold. One, the heavens have changed, and then two, your heaven has changed. This is why it always talks about that peace, and it talks about that lamb. I think Daniel's chapter 8 speaks about the lamb and the goat. And the lamb, of course, is Aries, when everything is on the up and up, and it's springy and it's rosy. And then the goat is Capricorn, which is the death season. So we have to understand that everything is a microcosm, and then there's a macrocosm. So the macrocosm would be the astrological or the cosmological aspect, where we're talking about the new heaven and new earth and the solar system and the different star constellations. And then the microcosm will be what happens inside of our brains once we accept this information and we turn in and we begin to do those daily sacrifices, aka meditation, and then we are at peace, and we're taking no thought, and we're at peace with the decisions and the things that happen around us.
Great, thank you so much. I think Pastor Archie, you must have a verse or something you want to unpack for us.
I want to read something and let Dr. Griffo help us out on this here, because it refers to what Tamisha was saying about the chapter 12 of Revelations, and it says that the Virgin Mother. We got to keep it. I always go back to this here. This is a initiate that has been initiated. He's a neophyte, and it's some stuff been explained to him, but it's something in here I want to ask Dr. Griffo about. It says the Virgin Mother being Shusam.
Which verse are you on, Pastor Archie? Which verse? I'm sorry.
That was 12. That's the 13th. This is in answer to the 13th.
Okay.
Verse of chapter 12 of Revelations. It talks about the Virgin Mother is the Shushamna, and that is part of what we're talking about, I believe. It said the two wings of the eagle are the Ida and Pingala. So I just want to bring out that we keep in mind that this is symbolism toward someone who is being initiated, and it's showing them what causes the issues that we have. And all that Tamisha said, all that stuff she was saying, you got to understand this winged woman is representing something. We can't forget the symbolism, which it says the winged woman represents the objective or substantial working of the serpentine fire, while the three witnesses answer to its subjective or noetic aspect. And the male child is the solar body that it's talking about. So I just want to bring out there's some more in there. I just want to ask Dr. Griffo about Eridanus, which is a river made by the dragon is Eridanus, a winding constellation. It talks about that constellation. So we can't miss this, Dr. Griffo, because I think this is telling us something. If you can.
Sure. Okay, when you're talking about the Shishumna, again, if you go back and listen to some of the older podcasts, I always specifically talked about the colors of red, white, black, and tan, gold, or either pale. And so you're dealing with the Shishumna, which is in metaphysical teachings is black. The Pingala, which relates to the pineal gland, is red, and that's masculine. And then the Ida, which is white, deals with the feminine aspect. So then what you're dealing with is what they call in the ancient Hindu cosmology, Nadis, Nadis. So you can look those up, and it talks about the Pingala, the Ida, and the Shishumna. And these are the Shishumna would be your spinal column, and then the Ida would be one part of that snake, and the Pingala would be the other part of that snake that goes to as it unwinds and goes up your spinal column. If you look at the medical symbol, the caduceus, it has the snake with the two wings on the side. Well, we've talked about numerous times that right here in this area behind your nose is what they call the sphenoid bone, and it resembles wings. It has a lower wing and a upper wing and a lower wing. And inside of the sphenoid bone, it holds the pituitary, which is the feminine gland. And the pituitary relates to the Ida. And it regulates all of the endocrine systems in our body, but it also is the feminine aspect. This is where we get the concept of an Isis from, that sits on a throne, because this particular gland sits in something that they called in the Turkish language, but it's inexplicably in our medical dictionary, it's called the Terces Sika, and it means the seat. And Isis's name means a set, throne. because this pituitary gland, which is feminine, is a representation of that. So when you're talking about this woman and who has the wings, it's talking about the feminine aspect, the pureness, the virginity of the right side of the brain, which is the God side of the brain. You're dealing with pure thoughts, you're dealing with cooperativeness, you're dealing with helpfulness, you're dealing with all things that are manifest that we consider good, which is opposing to the yang side of the masculine, which is analytical, which is non-compromising, which is direct. So then that's what you're dealing with when you're dealing with this particular scripture is dealing with it from a metaphysical level of how the Pingala being the masculine, the Ida being the feminine, and Shishimna being the black Zed pillar, they call it in Egypt, but in Hindu cosmology, they call it the Shishumna, and it's the spinal column. And these, as the Kundalini unfurls, you remember we talked about how it's 3.5 times wrapped and then it unfurls up, then it gets that winding DNA structure and it goes up and it comes out, as they showed in Egypt when they use on the Namuz, they have the snake and then they have the vulture. Well, what people don't know is the vulture was used because the vulture is the most nurturing of all of the birds. So, because in Egypt, they had a hawk, they had animals, they had other bird animals there, but they used the vulture because the vulture is very nurturing to its young, which represents what the pituitary gland does within our bodies.
Good. Thank you for that, Dr. Griffo. And, you know, just stepping back to Tamisha's point, and also and to yours too, Archie, but back in Revelation chapter 12, putting it down here and putting it out there where people who are living in this earth can get it, we goes right back to what you said, Dr. Griffo, it's your creative mind. So you can have that opposing part of yourself that says, oh, you can't get this done, or you know, this is never going to happen for you. But you got to, we should realize and want to understand that when we allow our creative juices to flow, that we can accomplish anything. It talks about that in the chapter 21 that Dr. Griffo read, is that now we can do all things. And then it says now, Dr. Griffo said, we're looking up at the sky, that's the heaven now. So now what are you doing? You have knowledge, you are in the knowing. That's what Aquarius is. It is to know. So don't be you know, okay, there's maybe some fear that you go through, but don't stay in that, because you must know that you can accomplish these things. When you get a good ideal, you didn't get that ideal because you just thought of it. There's something within you that gave you that information. So now you will have the strength to go forward. But I know we don't have a lot of time, but I want to ask about Lavelle a question. So for example, you are a family, a mother and father, or a mother or whatever, and you have this child. What does the book of Revelation, knowing what we know now, what can a mother do? What can a parent do to when their child is at the age when they can start teaching them? What should we be teaching about Lavelle as it relates to numerology, as it relates to the date they were born and all those things? Because I believe that is the key with our children. That is the key with the parents being able to understand this information so they can start teaching their children, so they won't be like us when we get in our 50s and 60s. Well, no, Tamisha's not, she's young, but you know, when we just starting to understand this. What is it that a parent can do?
Well, ideally, being in a community where you have people, reverends, priests, priestesses, who can assess, analyze, or what may be called presently as divine on this particular soul, so that they can get the proper direction. And I would say to do this by the time that they reach the age of 7. Because after the age of 7, then you have a further development with this particular soul. So up until I would say between the age of 5 and 7, get some guidance from someone who has been trained or taught into the knowledge of divining on this soul, and take it from there. It could be through astrology, it could be through numerology, it could be, you have different religions from around the world who do this. I know I've come into contact with many people who are from India, and this is something that they do. This is something that's done when a person goes through bar mitzvah. Okay, the rabbi, he instructs them on what to do, and then also money is given as well. But just to keep on the point of what can be done to enhance a soul, I would say to divine and find out where they are spiritually, and find out what their spiritual growth, and give them the guidance so they can further on in their life, be it spiritually, materially, or otherwise.
Very good. So what we're going to do, because let me say this, Lavelle Rosser is a highly sought after numerologist. So what we're going to be doing here today, SRC, is we're going to be giving away a 30-minute presentation for you to actually speak to Lavelle, because let me tell you something, when he does that 30 minutes, it's so worth it. You're going to find out more about yourself, or if you want to do it for your child or your grandchild, you can have it done for them. But we're going to be giving that away today at the end of the show. So stay around and look forward to being presented with that. We're going to choose one person who would get that today. So with that being said, I know we don't have a lot of time. So what I'd like to do now, just kind of go quickly around the room and to get some ending thoughts. Some ending thoughts from you, Mark Thomas.
I have one final question for you, Noah. Nobody ever asked you a question. You were speaking previously about being incarcerated. What do you feel is the difference between you and, say, somebody who was in there with you, who had accepted their lot in life? I mean, what was the difference? What brought you out?
I think you mentioned it in your question. The difference was that I didn't see myself in there. I didn't see myself being there, that this was my home. A lot of people in there, someone would say, "Where do you live at?" They said, "Oh, I live in dorm 2. I would say, "I'm housed in dorm 2. When we would go eat, I saw myself eating at a restaurant. So I never, my physical body was there, but my mind was always on the other side of the fence. And see, let me tell you this, one thing I do know for sure is that where your mind is, your physical body will dwell. So my mind was on the outside, and therefore my physical body had to catch up with my mind. So that's the difference in
I
how you
kind of
think.
anticipated that you were going to say that, and I think we could relate that not only to prison or being incarcerated, but if you want to change your life, you can't live as, well, for instance, in hell. You can be in hell, but if you're not living in it, then you can change it.
That's right. I love that. That's good. Right. I love that. Dr. Griffo, any final thoughts?
That was just interesting. It just brought me to the thought of, as a man thinketh, so is he. So, you kept your mind in the right place. But I just wanted to add, kind of unrelated, but I just wanted to kind of talk to the individuals. We're here for light. And it made me think about, even with those colors, the red, the white, the black, and the tan or the gold, you know what I mean? When you're putting in a electrical light, or you're putting in a ceiling fan, you're using exactly those colors: red, white, black, and gold for the ground wire, or sometimes green. But those other colors are pretty stagnant. You got the white, you got the black, and you got the red. So they know when they started creating this concept bringing in light and electricity, that it dealt with the fact that you're dealing with your body, which is an electrical input and output station as well. So I just wanted to just kind of bring that to individuals that might know what I'm talking about.
Right. I love that. And Pastor Archie, your final thoughts.
Okay, look, I'm looking at what you were saying about being incarcerated. You're incarcerated by your five senses. If we don't ever get beyond those five senses, see what we're speaking to people, we're speaking life to you, a higher way of life. But you got to understand, just as Anala did, she did not refer to that place as being a place that belonged to her. It didn't belong to her. And matter of fact, when she went in, we had already presented to ourselves what we were and who she were. That's why I tell you, the whole time I could see her when she was there. And it's because of how we see things. So you got to get beyond those five senses. The five senses will incarcerate you just like a jail cell if you don't get beyond them.
That's exactly right. Thank you. And your final thoughts, Tamisha Burgess.
My final thoughts are, we talk about symbolism and how things that play out in the cosmos also play out in our lives. And I want to remind us that, yes, we're talking about symbolism, but remember the phrase, as above, so below. So whatever happens in, galactically in our planetary system is also happening in our world and in our lives. And also to remember, as within, so without, right? So we are talking about and sharing the perspective of the Bible from the point of view of symbolism. But remember that whatever is happening on the inside of your body is also happening in your outer world, right? So we don't have to negate that whatever experiences that you are having tangibly, that they are out of alignment with who you are. They're in direct alignment with what is happening on the inside of your body. And we are all in this journey together. None of us here, the only thing that makes us experts here is the fact that we journeyed through some crap and have lived to talk about it. That's the only thing that makes us experts, is that we continue to have these experiences, but we are having them together. So if you're listening to this, you are not alone, and we will all rise together. So just like this woman that I brought up in chapter 13, giving birth, when she grew wings in the darkness, this is the idea of stitching your own cape and saving yourself. This is the idea of becoming a phoenix that rises out of the dark into the dawn of your new days. So we are all rising together.
Thank you so much. And some brief final thoughts from Lavelle before I toss it over to Mark Thomas.
Okay, I'd just like to follow up with what Pastor Archie said about the five senses, because that is so significant, especially in the cycle that we're in for the year of 2021, which has a number 5 vibration. And 5 is a number which represents freedom. And so when we can master those 5 senses, then we're on our way to the freedom that we're supposed to experience here on Earth.
Okay. Thank you so very much. Now, before I toss it over to Mark Thomas, I want to announce our winner for today, who will get that 30-minute consultation with none other than Lavelle Rouser. And that person today is going to be Miss Carrie Moses. She is going to get that 30-minute consultation. She involved herself. She asked questions. And so she's going to get that 30 minutes, and I will be getting the information over to you, Lavelle, and to you, Miss Moses, so that you guys can contact each other and get that 30-minute consultation. I know it's going to be well worth it. And with that, let's just give her a round of applause. We are so glad. You're very,
Thank you so much. Thank you.
No problem. And now I'm gonna toss it over to Mark Thomas because we are way out of time, but I've enjoyed this.
Well, we are got away from us. Great show today. Loved it. So all of us here with SRC want to thank the audience for sitting in on today's presentation. Our next broadcast will be on June 6th. So next week we will not have a broadcast. We're going to skip a week. What's the holiday? Is that Memorial? No, it's not Memorial Day.
I think it's Memorial Day, but you know, I don't really care about the holidays. We just need
It's
to
Memorial Day.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
Memorial Day, but I know that a lot of people might be traveling, doing some things, and so therefore we decided to.
Yeah. So please join us then on June 6th for another episode of Revealing Revelations. We really appreciate everyone's patronage and encourage you to email us your questions or comments at shiftingreligiousconcepts@gmail.com. If anyone's interested in advertising with SRC, please contact us at the same email. So that does it for today's broadcast. Once again, watch your email for our Zoom link inviting you to attend our next recording session on the 6th of June, right? 6th of June. Man, it's getting away from us. In the meantime, we wish you all peace, health, wisdom, and love, of course.